Hello, today we are reviewing the Smraza. This is the Raspberry Pi case. So, as you can see, I've already opened the item. I just repackaged it for the video. I've been using it. So this is the 2.5 amp 5 volt power brick. It's got one USB plug on it. We have the 3-foot USB type A to micro USB cable, and this one has an inline on and off switch, so that's pretty helpful. You also get a 5 volt cooling fan. They call it the Pi fan. You get 3 different heat sinks. We'll talk about those in a minute. And you also get 4 screws to mount the fan to the case. Here's the case. This is, I don't know if it's acrylic, probably plastic, I'm going to guess, laser cut. It comes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 layers. And all the material has like a coating on it, so it's just a little peel cover you can peel off. And then lastly, instructions. So as you can see, they tell you step by step which layer to use. These are all the layers numbered. So we're going to go ahead and put this thing together. So let me get my Pi, and here it is. So this is a Raspberry Pi 3. Take the memory card out. As you can see, now this case should work for the Raspberry Pi B, B+, as long as it has the Pi factor. It won't work for the Pi Zero, obviously, because it's too small. But let me go ahead and take the screws out. So these screws here are just plastic screws, which is fine. You don't need metal screws. You're in a plastic case, so there's no point. You're not going to gain any more heat spreading. So I'm going to go ahead and take all this apart. Now the first time I put this case together, it did take me a few minutes to figure out all the details. But as you can see, there's different layers to the case. So there's a black layer and then a clear layer, so you get this cool black and white look. So we're going to put all this aside. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually put the heat sinks onto the board. So you get 3 different sizes. Actually, these 2 are the same size. Well, they're pretty close. Let's see. Yeah, these are the same size. So I'm going to go ahead. So you got one that goes there. The big one obviously goes on the processor. And then on the back side, you've got one that goes here. Now I'd like to see a little bit bigger of a heatsink. Maybe like this size for the back, just to give it a nice beefy bump. So maybe something to consider for future cases, Smraza, because then you still have the cutout is big enough for the processor heatsink. Otherwise, you still have the cutout here. So definitely would like to see a bigger one on the back. I'm not quite sure what, I know this is the processor, this is I think the USB controller maybe, and then this might be like the, I don't know what each board does, but okay, so let's go ahead and put these on. So these are just peel and stick. They've already got like a thermal material on them, as you can see the little black surface. So this is the processor one, so I'm going to go ahead and do this one first. Just try and get it as straight as you can. And they are a double-sided adhesive, so they stick pretty instantly. So there's the one there. And then we'll do the second one. Now, this is obviously just me, but I like to have the fins all going the same direction. So as you can see, my heat spreader fins are both going this way. Just more cosmetic looking, looks a lot nicer. On the back side, I'm going to have it going the same way, so looks like I knew what I was doing. Alright, third little one here. Go ahead and put that one on the back. Try and get it centered there. So obviously if this was a full-size heatsink, then you wouldn't have an issue of a black edge. So as you can see, everything's lined up there. Oh, I already broke my own rule. Oops. Oh well, it's on the bottom. So this one's going left to right. These two are going vertical. Oh well. If they look at the bottom, tough. Okay, so there's those. These are all on there. These do pop off. It's just double stick tape, so do be careful with that. So now let's go ahead and get our case ready. So as you can see, we've got 9 different parts. We've got all these pieces and parts. This is where the instructions really come in handy, because so I'm gonna leave the plastic on these. You can surely peel them off. Personally, this is just gonna sit. It doesn't really matter what it looks like. Maybe I'll peel the plastic off at some point, but for now I'm gonna leave the plastic on. So in the instructions, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera away so you guys can follow along. So in the picture we can see we've got the first number 1 plate, which is this one, and you can see that the vent for the heatsink is on the left side. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one first, and it says to put the screws in. I'm going to only put 2 screws in for right now. I found that works best. So then we have plate number 2, which is this black plate here. So we can filter out by our black plates. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all the clear ones together and all the black plates together. Separate them. So when it comes time to look for parts, I know what to look for. So here's the black plate. This matches the description here. And we're going to go ahead and line this one up. Now this one, they don't really tell you in the direction, because you notice there's a thick side and a skinny side. So I'm going to put the thick side to this side of the pie. So the pie sits on here like this. And you'll see it'll actually make a difference here in a minute. Next we have this plate, number 3. So you have a skinny side and a thick side. And I'm going to match the thick sides on this one as well. Actually, I'm going to put it on the right way. So as you can see, okay, so now it says step 4, you put your pie in place. Now, if your boards line up, and I don't know if these 2 boards really make a difference, but see how my pie is not really sitting flat. So I'm going to flip this over here. And as you can see, obviously I already screwed up there because my base plate is upside down. So I'm going to flip the base plate over so the heatsink can sit flat, and put our screws back in. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 in the bottom there. This will help just straighten your case. There we go. Alright, so actually our pie's sitting pretty good right now. So now I'm going to move on to step number 5. So number 5 is a black plate, and it has the little notch here. That's the deciding factor, is this notch. So you have the little fingers. This lines up like this, and that whole thing should drop on. Now none of these pieces you should force, they should all just fall into place. You should have maybe a little bit of tweaking. As you can see here, I have a little bit of an issue. The plastic plate's actually hitting the heat spreader. So I might have to try and, there we go. I just had to push the heat spreader just a little bit just to get it all to work. Alright, and then everything, next thing is just make sure all this sits flush. Just kind of work it all around. See, I don't have, this isn't even here. And this might have something to do with my first 2 plates. So remember how those 2 plates, I just started with one way? Well, now you see we have issues. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this back up. And we have our pie still. So these 2 plates I'm going to go ahead and pull these two back off. We lost a screw, but that's okay. So I'm going to flip these over and then put it back on. And obviously thin side to thin side. Now I feel like this isn't the right way either, but we're going to find out. Alright, so that's in. Go ahead and put this plate back on. Now the reason I say have 2 of the 4 screws in is because this thing wants to move a lot and I'm still not getting it to line up very well, so I don't know what's going on here. So let me go ahead and pull one of these out, see what is the issue. It took me a minute or so the first time. Okay, so I think I see my problem. So this clear plate needs to go on this side. So the clear plate with the little notches in it actually lines up with the USB ports. And then this plate, the skinny sides line up. So let me take these off again. So let's try this one more time. Hopefully I get it right this time, because I'm sure you're already tired of watching me screw this up. Alright, so there's that. Pi. As you can see, notch, notch on the component side. So that's all nice and flush. I'm going to go ahead and put our first layer down. Try and get it level as I push it down. Alright. How are we looking? Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put the 2 screws in here to see if I can see what's going on, because this should be flush. No, it's not happy. So there is room here. So this whole thing is definitely shifted though. When I was using this before, I didn't have the heat sinks on because I didn't think it was going to be an issue, but it may be an issue because that one definitely rubs. Let me pull these back out. Alright. What is this, the 4th try? 4th try is a charm, right? Okay, plate like this. This big side on this side. And then this on this side. Yes, yes. Okay. Screw through the bottom. You can also do the screws the other way, but I'm just following what they have. Alright, that lines up. Awesome. I'm going to start with 1 screw. Then, this plate, according to this, it goes that way, but obviously that doesn't fit. So it goes this way. Try and get it nice and level here. Push my heat spreader out of the way just a hair. Alright. Now we're onto a clearer level. And we want the clear with the little notch. So that goes on there. This is a very unique case, I have to say, once you assemble it all. We're hitting somewhere. I don't know. Why it's having trouble mashing it all together. Maybe once I get it all together, it'll all fall into place. Okay, next one, black plate with a big side. That goes on like so. And then we have the clear with the big notch in it. Goes on like so. And the way this case is designed, you can still plug the 40 pin ribbon cable and it'll come out the side here, or it has a slot to come out the top. Alright, now we're on this piece. So like this is upside down. There we go. And then the piece of final resistance here. The lid. There we go. So let me put the other screws in here and see if we can get this to all line up. So obviously it's still very flimsy, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the cover off because we still need to put the fan in. But I'm going to go ahead and try and line all these other pins up. There's that. Now these can just be hand tightened, you don't have to go overboard by any means. There's that. You don't need to go get your big heavy duty tools. Finger tight is plenty. Alright, something's going on because this bottom layer does not want to mash up, so I'm going to go ahead and take these off again. Whatever count I'm at. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the screws in the other way so I don't lose my alignment and panels don't go flying all over the place. Alright, last screw. So I'm taking it down to there. So I've got two screws. This is all nice and flat. As you can see, super flat, super flush. This plate, having a little bit of trouble because I just realized I have it on backwards. So that was my problem the entire time. So I didn't account for the slot here for the SD card. I didn't think about it. So these two bottom plates were actually on upside down. And then that makes sense. Ta-da! Look at that. Like a glove. Alright. So, I have issues, obviously, with putting things together sometimes. Okay, so I've got one screw in. I'm going to go ahead and flip around the other two and then put my nuts on just to keep these together. Now the Pi, obviously, it doesn't have any actual bolts that go through the board. It just uses the pressure from the layers of material to keep it stable. And this works fine. I had no issues. So there's that. Ta-da! So now all these layers are stacked. So we're going to go ahead and set this down. And I'm missing a nut, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And as you can see, if you put it together right, look at your heat sink is center in the middle. Okay, now to the cap. So this is the top. Goes just like that. You have a cutout for the camera and a cutout for the display and a cutout for the 40 pin connector. So here's my fan. If you mount the fan with the label up, it's going to pull air out of the case. If you mount it with the fan blade up, it's going to pull air into the case. There's no markings on the fan for orientation, but I'm just going based off of computer knowledge of fans, and that's how those fans work. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the fan with the cable in the back here, and I'm going to put the screws facing up to give it a nicer look so I don't have nuts and bolts sticking out. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And the reason I'm putting the fan with the cable on the backside is so then when it plugs in to the board, there's not a lot of extra slack. So there's number 2. Now obviously if you do have the fan facing this way, this is an open fan, so it will be susceptible to fingers or any kind of objects that may come in interference with it. So just be careful. I don't think you'll hurt yourself, but anything is possible. So now I've just got these on here finger tight. I'm going to go ahead and center the fan up as best as it looks, and then get my tool set here and finger tighten these. Oh, so close. There we go. So this is a 5mm wrench, or a 5mm hex nut. So that's pretty centered there. And then what I'm gonna do is, so I want all of my screw heads on the top and all the nuts. Actually, I'm gonna have all the nuts on the top and the screw heads on the bottom. That way it'll give my board a nice flat surface to sit on, because otherwise you just have the end of the screws and that's not always a smooth, nice flat surface. So we have this here. So on the Raspberry Pi, let me get a little pointer device. So you have first 2 pins, second 2 pins, that's your 5V and your ground pins. So 5V is on this side, ground is on this side. So what I'm going to do is hold the case together and insert. I'm actually going to leave this one screw still connected, and I'm going to connect my fan, 5V there, and ground, and then put the final cover on. So I have my nut for the bottom screw right there. Now I'm going to double check the pinout for the Raspberry Pi. Because I don't want to short the pins on the fan, and I don't want to cross the pins and then blow up the fan and then I have no fan. Because what's the point of having a case if you can't have a fan? Alright, so here we go. So as you can see, first 2 headers, and then you have DC power and 5V. So as you can see, we want these 2 pins, and right now I'm using the red and blue pins. We want the red and black pins. So I'm glad I checked because I hooked it up wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and take the nut off here. Go ahead and pull this up, pull this out, turn it 90 degrees. So in theory, if this is like that, you have pin 1, which is 5V, pin 2 is 5V, pin 3 is ground. That's exactly what we have. Go ahead and put that back on. And we'll put the rest of our pins in. And that is it. So in testing, this is a great little case. The fan can sometimes be a little loud if you're not listening to any kind of movie or anything. I just had this fan sitting on my desk, and you do notice it. I'm actually going to play it for you guys right now. So let me get this all hooked up. and then I will, so there's the completed case. Go ahead and pop my SIM card back in, or my SD card. As you can see, that sits nicely in the middle, so I would like to see a little bit bigger of a heatsink there, just because they give you the room. Why not cram the heatsink in? As you can see, this might be a little tough with the micro USB, but the micro USB cable that they provide fits with no issues. And included on and off switch is a nice feature. Headphone, HDMI, no issues. Camera connector, display connector, can be covered if you run the wiring like I have done. And then you have full access to your 4 USB and your Ethernet, as well as your 40-pin connector that can either run out the side or run out the top. So let me go ahead and plug this in, and then you can listen to what the fan sounds like. Alright, so I have it connected to power. I'm going to go ahead and take my mic and put it right up to the fan. I'm actually going to turn off my other fan. 1 second. Okay, here we go. So on boot, it's not very loud. It's very, very quiet. But I do notice it does ramp up when it does get warmer. So I'm not sure if the Pi is just giving it more power or what happens. So there you can hear it. That's about as loud as it gets. And with the on and off switch, you can turn that off. Go ahead and set that right there. So super handy, super nice. I do have to say this is one of the better Raspberry Pi cases that I've seen, just because it has a lot of features crammed into it, and it's a good looking case. So I'll give you a better close-up view here. So there's the back, the I/O side, the SD card side, ribbon cable slot, and then the jacks. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Hopefully this helps you make a decision on if you want to buy the product. You can tighten these down a little bit. I don't have a socket on hand for them, at least in my kit, but just finger tight. There's no rubber feet. That would kind of be another nice feature, is some little rubber feet on here, and then that would keep it from sliding around on your table. But quick trip to the dollar store can answer that question. So thank you for watching.